My daughters are now in their 30s, but I can still remember vividly when they were teenagers and I navigated with them as they learned to drive. I have vivid memories of them pointing out my bad driving habits when they rode with me after they had gone through their driver's education. Whenever I was driving, it was like that they had come upon a newfound reality that their dad did not always do the right thing. Speed limit's 30, Dad, as I was going 40-something. My apparent reckless disregard for the law, however slight it seemed to me, was for them a matter of real moral justice. I should say I have 3 demerits, driving demerits, in my 44 years of driving, 2 incidentally acquired years ago on my way to the hospital as a physician, if you can believe it, and 1 while showing a visiting priest around Seattle a few years back. The fastest I have ever driven in my life was in the fall of 1991 when a state trooper called me at the clinic where I was working in Jonesboro, Arkansas. This is before cell phones, and my wife and 18-month-old daughter had just been in a car accident out in the rice fields of northeast Arkansas, about 30 minutes away from Jonesboro. I didn't get that they were injured or not. It was just that I was told to come. It turns out that they, in trying to swerve and miss another car passing them, got caught on the edge of the highway, which pulled them over and flipped over into a 10-foot deep drainage ditch, and they were both suspended by their seat belts upside down until the farmer who was in his rice field working on his harvest ran over and helped get them out, saying that it was just 2 hours earlier that they had drained the ditch. They were okay, frazzled, a little sore, but no worse for the wear. I made it fast to that place in northeast Arkansas. I share this story to set up this question: why do we do what we do? Why do I speed sometimes instead of following the law? At some level, I choose to break the law because I want to do that more than I want to obey the law and avoid getting a speeding ticket, or more than I want to take longer getting to my destination. I do what I want to do. Ethicists call this line of thought the field of casuistry, case study. The principle being that you have a general moral theory which would help you conclude to go in the right way to proceed. But when applied to specific circumstances, it can also provide a reasonable explanation for why a different path might be taken. The work of moral casuistry is to become more aware of the decisions that we make in the course of a day and why we're making them. So let me give you another simple illustration. This came out in our liturgical minister training yesterday. If a person decides to skip church on a Sunday morning so that he can sleep in or read the paper or play golf or whatever else, the truth is that that person wants to do the other activity more than he wants to come to church. Now, do I believe that going to church has merit? Yeah. Right? But I have little interest in manipulating or browbeating people to get them into church. For my part, I think the church would do well to banish words like should or ought. You should be in church. You ought to be in church. If you want to go to church, friends, go to church. If you don't, don't. Just know why you do what you do. And the fact is, we are all going to do what we want to do. And as far as I know, Jesus never knocked people over the head or shamed them into following him. This line of thought, this moral casuistry, is at the heart of our scriptures this morning. They're difficult scriptures. Amos's admonition to rich folks of his day whose slovenly lifestyles are impeding their orientation to gratitude for God's blessings in their lives. And then Paul's exhortation to Timothy and to the early church community to do good, not because they should or ought to, but because orienting to God is simply more life-giving than orienting to lesser things. And then there's this parable of the rich man and poor Lazarus. Now remember, parables are not to be taken literally. Their deeper meaning always lies in the realm of interpreted truth. So Lazarus lies outside the rich man's gate. In Luke's gospel, gates are always symbolic for injustice and inequity. Lazarus is there, hungry, disease-ridden, suffering, even the dogs licking his oozing wounds. It's a terrible scene. Who could miss such suffering right before their eyes as they passed by them through their gate? And then as I was reflecting this week on this passage, I realized how many times I walk to the grocery store down the street and literally step over someone right in front of the doors. Yes, the rich man literally has to step over Lazarus each morning as he crosses his threshold. The rich man wants to ignore the poor man on his doorstep more than he wants to deal with him. That's the casuistry. But then something remarkable happens. In the hellish existence that came when he could only think of himself, the rich man considers the plight of others and says, "Go and tell my brothers who are still living and beg them to do things differently than I did." You and I are his brothers, you see. The ones still alive, the ones who are able to choose what we want to do. And Jesus says, no, sending someone from the dead to strike fear in our hearts, is not the way to turn our hearts to care for one like Lazarus. The threat of hell is not the way to salvation. If that were the ethical guide motivating our action, then wanting to avoid hell would be the prompt for caring for someone like Lazarus, hardly a compassionate or dignifying reason to care for someone suffering. If that is the motive, we're just back to shoulds and oughts. I should care for him so I don't get punished. Where's the dignity in that? Instead, Jesus says, listen to God's story and be part of it. It is a story of steadfast love and compassion and mercy and an invitation to a shared abundance of life. My friends, in recent days, we have seen contrasting stories played out in the news and in our land in disturbing ways. Poor pitted against rich, condescending hatred leading to merciless suffering, arrogant disregard for the other, and obsequious line towing to authority. We do what we want to do. But we who gather in this place week by week orient to a radically different story than those being played out in our time. It invites us to practice mercy and forgiveness and compassion and dignifying love for others, even when we don't want to see them or deal with them. I would say especially when we don't want to see them or deal with them. Not because we should, but because we want to. And let's be clear, in our story, them means everyone, even those we don't like, even those we can't stand. It is a story scripted by the merciful God who refuses to let hell or death have the final word. From our earliest days of Christianity, our story declares that there has been a harrowing of hell by Christ, a vanquishing of hell by Christ. who bridged that chasm once and for all, extending the invitation to the whole of humanity, past, present, and those yet to come. Our creed that we will say in just a moment says it clearly: Christ descended to the dead, and we believe in the resurrection of the dead. It is a story that invites us to redirect our lives to that good news. So I would ask you, is that what we want to do? Because if it is, if we really want to orient our lives to that good news, then everything else in our lives change. Everything. Not because it should, but because we will want nothing else than that. May it be so. Amen.